Meeting to order, and if you can please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And after the Pledge of Allegiance, if we can all just remain standing for a moment of silence, as of course we know this is 9/11. So if we can just remember all the sacrifices that were made and the loss of life 22 years ago. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Thank you. Rachel, if you can call roll, please. Here.
Here. Here.
Present. Here.
Thank you. I'd like to make an announcement that an executive session was held this evening at 6:15 p.m. regarding legal, personnel, and property. Council, is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Motion made.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any council discussion? There being none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Agenda carries. We'll move on to public comments, and at this time, if you come to the podium, please, we encourage those speaking to come to the podium and speak in the microphone. Since we are transmitting on Zoom, complete your comments within 3 minutes, stay on topic, present your comments in a spirit of cooperation and collaboration, and be respectful of the institution of Borough Council and the public in words, tones, and gestures.
Good evening, Andy Froning, 308 Marshall Street. I would ask that the Mr. President indulge me for some brief remarks regarding the housing presentation at the last August meeting, as I was not available to be here. Take that to yes. Thank you. There are several fundamental considerations regarding housing in our town. As was presented in the workshop last month, there is an increasing demand for housing that exceeds the available inventory. That imbalance ratio has the effect of driving up costs at all price points. Two factors can drive down costs: increasing supply or diminishing demand. During the workshop, suggestions were made regarding increasing supply using changes to our zoning ordinances. These changes would allow for greater flexibility in the construction of accessory dwelling units and the so-called missing middle housing. While there are challenges, both legal and technical, to instituting those changes, they are possible. I agree, however, with Councilperson Skakamo's skepticism that such changes would do more to lower costs, as even these changes would not likely increase supply sufficiently to lower costs. As for large-scale development, and here we probably speak of NVF, the land acquisition and construction costs limit the incentive for developers to provide lower-cost housing without public-provided subsidies. Public-private partnerships may be the single most effective approach to provide affordable housing to lower-income families and help mitigate the overcrowding in our town. Consideration should be given to working with our surrounding municipalities to develop regional partnerships as well. Increasing supply begs the question, however, of how does an increase in population affect the character of the town and thus its appeal? The look and feel of Kennett, from my discussion with new residents when they come before us in the Harb, is an important factor in their decision to move to Kennett. The unique and varied architecture, the tree-lined streets, the compact business district, the human scale of the place is important. Is it as important as the people that live here, the schools, the public safety, and the special events? I don't know, but it is still an important factor. The question to be asked is, when does an increasing housing supply reach the point of diminishing returns? When do we build so much and in such manners that we fundamentally diminish the desirability of our town to the point where we lose a significant part of why we all want to be here? There are no simple answers to the complex questions regarding housing in Kennett. I believe we need thoughtful and reasoned discussions among council, staff, and the public to do what is best for the folks who live here now and for those who want to be a part of this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan.
John Thomas, 406 South Broad Street. First of all, I'd like to thank whoever's took care of that problem up on Church Alley. They did a nice job. Last Friday, I went to the bank to make a simple deposit, which took about 2.5 minutes. And 9 cars came by in 2.5 minutes down that alley to Cypress Street. 9 cars. Now, the only thing else I'd ask you to do is quit allowing people to park on a one-way, one-lane alley. You got people that got permission to park there, and they park up and down that alley. As for what Andy was saying, I'm glad that he spoke up about this. If you read the paper recently, there's a big article in the paper about Chester County. The median income in Chester County now is $100,000. So it's going to be awful hard to build affordable housing in a township or county that's got a median income of $100,000. We are probably the first or second highest cost of living in Pennsylvania in a county. It's not our fault, but it's a reality. And we are becoming to a point where we're saturated. We are becoming saturated where our roads cannot handle anymore. And you're going to drive people away. We have way too many apartments. Don't you realize that apartments are temporary housing? Temporary. They come and go. They're not here. They're here for a job, or they're here because they want to come to Kennett for a while. They have no roots here. Like most of you people don't have roots here. And it's a simple fact. At least some of you have invested here, and hopefully you'll stay. But an example of that is tonight, we celebrate 9/11. We, as a town, should celebrate one of the people who worked at 9/11 and who died of cancer and would never tell you that he got it from there, but was there running heavy equipment. He also was a former police officer in this town, and he ran fire town line. Done more for this town than all of you together, and most people here. Volunteered for everything. Gave his heart and soul to this town. His father owned the Green Gate, which became the Kennedy Inn, which became whatever it is now. After every meeting, every council meeting, the whole room would go down to the Green Gate and drink and talk. And it was a working man's bar in those days. It was just a working man's bar. But the councilman and the public and everybody knew everybody, and y'all went down there and had a drink and talk and afterwards, but you just walked right down the street. Again, Tony took over from Pat Kelly Oil. And kind of moved him out, and then after so many years, it's a circular thing. After a while, your new group comes in, and you move the old guys out or move them over and take over. And, yeah, you're pretty good. If you can last 20, 25 years as a group, you're doing pretty good. Pop Kelly was the chief when they opened the firehouse up on State Street and on Broad Street, 1954. Tony was the chief when they had that no-cost fire company to the borough. When he couldn't stay a policeman, he didn't have the temperament for it. He'd go to the bar to straighten it out, and if anybody gave him crap, he'd wipe the whole bar out. So he had to give that up. But Tony was a tough dude, and he protected this town a lot. He helped in so many ways that you don't know. If somebody needed to volunteer, the trail, the Relay for Life, everything. I mean, he just volunteered for everything. And didn't ask anything back. He used to come up and argue with council over money all the time. Good man, good man. And tonight we should honor him because I don't know how many people from Kennet went up to New York, but he did. And he worked heavy equipment up there. And a few years ago, he died of cancer. He never said a word about where he died. But it's very sick of cancer. A lot of first responders died. So, legacy. And there are others in this town that have legacy. But you gotta be here and know, or else you gotta interview people before they die off. Know who your legacy people are. Legacy is very important. As this building is important and other buildings are important, so are the people that built this town. Barbara Bode. She used to do all the Christmas stuff, we pay for it. All the merchants, she started that. My mother taught Barbara Bode in jewelry business. My father became a prisoner when my mother quit. And the person she trained was Barbara Bode, who had that own business. There's a lot of history in this town that people don't know that we're going to lose because we're dying off. But today's the time to celebrate Tony. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Well said.
Margaret Opplinger, 251 North Broad Street. First of all, I just want to say that I've called into the last couple meetings because we weren't in town, and it's very difficult to hear any of you if you don't speak into the microphone. It's terrible. The Zoom is awful. And actually where we were, we've called in during the pandemic to the township meetings there, and it's a two-way. So I could ask a question if I wanted to, or, they don't let you just butt in unless they want you to, but that's an option. So I just wanted to make that point. Second of all, I'm very concerned to not see anything on tonight's agenda regarding the borough leaving the Fire EMS Consortium 11231. On June 5th, we heard the recommendations of the Fitch consultant. Fitch's preferred option was for the borough to remain in the consortium for 1 year to determine the best path forward. On June 29th, the borough decided to go a different way and shared a resolution draft giving notice of leaving the consortium. This was not one of Fitch's options. It is my understanding that the Commonwealth requires 90 days notice of any change in the fire EMS. That means the borough has to give the state notice by 10/1. If a plan has been worked out and or submitted, shouldn't the borough relay the information to the residents? If no plan has been formulated, when should we expect to hear what that plan is? Also, what happens January 1st if the borough has a change of heart and wishes to remain in the consortium? Does it not require a unanimous vote of all remaining municipalities to readmit us? Have we burned our bridges to the point of no return? Will the consortium still be an option? Anyway, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Uplinger.
Hi, Sandy D'Antonio, 220 North Broad Street. I do not mean any disrespect, but the Borough building was closed for 2 days. No message was on the machine about picking up the Mushroom Festival bands. There were many neighbors and friends that complained amongst each other, which is not good PR for the borough. The other thing is, originally the workers had to work outside the borough building. Now I picked mine up Friday and it was inside the borough building. But taxpayers pay for this building, so I don't understand why they had to work outside last week. It was hot. Would anyone like to enlighten me about the building being closed for 2 days?
The manager will give an update
Okay,
after public comment.
because the consensus from the public that I've dealt with was you do have a fenced in area. The school was understandable, but people need to go on with their lives with the permits, the festival bands and whatnot. So I'm off my soapbox on that. But also though, if your workers were paid and not working, my question just is, I don't need an answer now. What about the support staff at the police station, the grounds, road crew, and all of them? Because if the other people got to be off without being paid, then my feeling is they should at least get comp time. And I do want to say, I was glad that the old library looked nice for the Mushroom Festival because it was an eyesore. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. D'Antonio.
Ken Edwards, 412 Meredith Street. I'd like to thank the borough for the fact that over the last week and a half, they paved one block of the street and 2 alleys. Only problem is with my alley, Chestnut Alley, instead of the water continuing to drain down the street to the drainage ditch, it stops. It's dammed up. And I don't know about Pennsylvania, but I know where I'm from. When you're going to repave, you try and repave it as close to what it originally was graded for. And my street was kind of graded like this: high angle, low angle. They took out the low angle and made a hump further down the street. So now I have Lake Kennet behind my garage. And the only problem I have with that is people use that alley to take their children to the preschool over there, and they go down that alley like a bat out of hell. Saying something to the driver, might just well forget about it because they're just going to look at you and go, huh? Dumb people that they are. And if anybody of them are in here, my apologies. That's my feeling. And I agree with getting out of the consortium because I just got my donation package. Surprisingly, it wasn't from the Kennet Fire Company. It was from Kennet Regional Fire. And it had the emblems of all 3 fire companies on it. Now, it never was that way. And that tells me somebody's dictating where that money's going to. Because it used to be, you could say, in the last year, it's which company do you want to go to? It wasn't on there, just a box for you to check, like, what town do you live in? And all 6 of the towns were listed there. So that tells me I don't like it. And I'm hoping that you guys can put your brains together and come up with a good idea by the end of the year to make sure that we have fire protection for the town as it was prior to the start of this disaster. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards.
Corey McIntosh, 825 Taylor Street. Just wanted to respond to the letter that went out on behalf of all three fire companies. Just so that everyone's aware, the agreement there is that the fund drive is going to be split into thirds, which is actually going to benefit Kennett more than it has in the past with the fund drive, as the other two fire companies on the commission typically bring in more money than Kennett does.
Thank you, Corey.
Nice to see everybody's here today. Charlotte Watson, 523 Magnolia Street. We have all the council people in attendance. That's a rarity. I want to speak to you to the pool. We can't forget. People start to write stuff down so we can go backwards, then we can go forward. The pool, we have not heard a thing from you. And the first thing, all of you were diligent in your responsibilities, as when they came up about the issue of the pool, right away, one of you should have made a motion, and it never happened. A motion should have been made about that pool. That pool belongs to the Borough of Kennett Square. We expect you to get it back. Get their hands off of it. The years of making profit, be discriminatory in how they designated their memberships and their attendance should be over now. And to hear one of you say, I'd like to see the Y operate that. No, the Y can't operate that. Because it's not for the general benefit of the citizens of our town. And that's who it's for. Not people who can afford a Y membership and to shut our public entity down. I expect one of you to start to come up with a membership, with a motion. Should have been done. Next season, next year when the season opens, we expect to hear little kids in there and people being able to have individual memberships for their children and family memberships again. Yards and maintenance been looking very bad around here. My street was always manicured. It looks terrible. I look to the new people who move in, they're not keeping their homes. The Barwell house, if anybody hears from Kennett, knows that Mr. Barwell kept that house immaculate. Looks terrible. It looks terrible. We need to, and not only my street, I've been riding around to see that, you know, everybody's trying to film a jungle movie, okay? Let's get it straight. And we need somebody working codes right, because I heard another person quit. Now, that's news. So we're coming up from nothing, and we don't have a veteran to break them in. Any job, any place where you're at, a veteran is very important because they teach the young people. You don't have none, so you're starting new. So we need boots on the ground. We need people attending to each of the areas where these people are leaving a little bit better. The fire department's having a meeting on September 14th. Is that correct? That's the second part too, if anybody wants to go and hear anything and ask any questions. So I think that's very important, being the people we're talking about, the consortium. I want to talk to you about apartments. No, apartments not our problem. Rentals versus home ownership is the problem. The homes, Kennett's going to be a destroyed town. I hope my little house can hold up. It's going to be a destroyed town. It already is. We look like a carnival. We always had a conservative, sedate look in our town. Even if we had the oldest buildings in the Chester County, which we do almost in our downtown, we always had something quaint and welcoming about it. Now it looks like a carnival. Every day's a party. That's ridiculous. We need to bring some, I don't know, some sort of conservative thing here. You can tell new money or new attitude has come in here because old money didn't appreciate the look that you're creating. I've lived here 73 years. I think I know a little bit better than you. With the surrounding areas, even Unionville, whether it was West Grove, Avondale, when we were the center of Chester County, when everybody came here on Friday night to the Acme, because there was no other. People appreciated for what we were, and we had a community that could interact with one another. You were building a community where no one knows anybody. And you might need a bigger police department because by the time you start to have discord for how you're mixing people in here with no relationship, coming from different areas, that leads to conflict, from what I know, in the school, among the kids. It's just like a microcosm of a community. You're not even thinking about the schools because it's also impacting our taxes. Each time you build something and put more people in here, that school has to change its trajectory. And it hits us in the pocket again. And with the school taxes being the biggest tax, that's a problem. That is really a problem. Home ownership versus rentals. As I said before many times, to put it in simpler words than Mr. Froney, my high school classmate, wake up. It's the fact that when that happens, you no longer have a sense of community at all when you start to do that. And we've reached that. And I'm going to tell you another thing, the pricing of these houses, they're not even worth what they're being sold for. So I want somebody who's an egghead on that to tell me how that affects the future of our town. Because I can only think about things going on down, the government coming in trying to make a sense of it, and some homes being sold much less than what they're worth, changing the whole caliber of the zoning and the neighborhoods by the people it's going to bring in. So I think it's important that you realize that when we see up there the height from the Dog and Pony Show last meeting, the height of the buildings they want to change. For what? Accessory dwelling units are supposed to fit within the footprint of the main dwelling. They're not supposed to be more than 50% of the size of the living area of the main area, of the main residence. Then we want relief from parking. How can you have relief from parking when we're having a problem in this town now? Who suggested that? That was the worst presentation I ever saw, and if I had to grade it, it would have been an F. Because all it was propaganda. Somebody standing up here saying anything to drive a ridiculous mentality where someone's going to profit from it, but not the citizens. I'm tired of that idiocy in this town, where people are talking about us so bad it's a crying shame. You go to your doctor's office, you go to the dentist, you can go down Wawa. Everybody got an opinion about what can it's not. And I don't know where you people go, because I get it all the time. And people come in my home talking about it and bring it from the restaurant they was in. Somebody said, do you know this about this? No, I don't know about it. Paving, I think, was great. I drive that alley. I think it's great because I couldn't speed down that alley. All them potholes was in that alley that he's talking about. I don't know the name of it, the one down around Gotham's. But I will say this in the paving. I don't know whether you better take a second look at that. And I was hoping Rob was here because there's a seam down each one. And I don't understand that. Why each alley or street, whatever was paved, most of them have a seam. Most of them don't have a seam when you're paving correctly. They don't have it at all. It's totally smooth. So somebody better look at that because that's waiting to break open later on. On his alley also, I thought that when you got to Mulberry Street, there might have been a section that maybe need to even be milled out a little bit more because it can already open up in about 6 months. I just kind of looked at it, but I'm not an expert there. But I know them seams don't belong down those roads. That's about all I have to say, except the library 0.2%. If they succeed in getting that 2.2% from our citizens, robbing us again, just robbing us. No other money better come from our budget to that library. None. None other in the general budget should come out if they succeed. You should take a vote immediately after the election results are said. They shouldn't get any more from the town of Kennett Square through tax and on our tax bill and to our taxes, other than that 0.2 if they succeed. And that's a given, because they said they could support their library. There was a terrible fiasco down there. Was it their opening? I'm surprised somebody else here didn't say anything about it. All the people that was in the street on that Sunday, all the cars, there should be no cars on the south side of State Street, nor the north. We couldn't see, looking through car windows to see if you should go over to Willow, over State. Nobody there to direct traffic, and I guess it was their opening. And the two men that were there to stop you from going across on Willow until it was my time to go. And I said, one of you better direct traffic because we can't see. You didn't announce an opening here. You didn't approve that they close the street because I come to the meetings. And there was nobody there to govern us. They've been parking on both sides of State before you get to Willow, and that can't happen. It's no visibility, whether it's pedestrian or vehicular. And I like to know where I can see the safety and you can't. Oh, by the way, one last thing, get them men back here and fix the street down there by that new apartment. They need to fix State Street so we can drive without ruining our struts and our shocks. And they need to go down on Mill Road and do it because they messed that up now. And they need to go to Washington Street also. It's ridiculous. And I've been complaining about that. They should never be allowed to dig a hole without making it smooth so we can
Thank you,
drive.
Ms. Watson. And Mr. Froning, if you did fall asleep during Ms. Watson, that's very impressive. So, no, I'm just kidding. Any other public comment? All right, we'll move on to the reports, and I've got a couple items. One with the YMCA that was brought up by Ms. Watson. There have been, I'll say internal discussions, but it's more individual discussions. But the YMCA does have a new executive director. He is very in tune to the public comments, and he's very and this is the Brandywine Valley YMCA, not our local YMCA. So he is very in tune to all the issues right now. And we look forward to having him at October's meeting, just to introduce himself, to recognize what's been said, what the concerns are, and setting a path forward. Ms. Opplinger, you mentioned a number of things regarding fire and EMS that we are extremely well aware of, and the Borough Task Force of myself, the mayor, Ms. Ferraro, Mr. Norris and Kyle and Chief Holdsworth at times has been working diligently trying to get a path forward with fire and EMS. The last couple of weeks has been mostly discussions with the respective fire companies and with the commission negotiating team. We have a meeting on Wednesday where hopefully we get a little closer to that and have an update accordingly. But we do know that we are working with some very tight timelines right now. 3 thank yous that I would like to give. One, Rob and team, everybody involved with the coordination of the paving efforts. For the most part, everything seemed to go extremely well and on time, and it is much appreciated by a number of residents. Law enforcement, fire, EMS teams for, of course, the Mushroom Festival at a time when it was a little hectic around this neck of the woods with everything going on around the Longwood Gardens area. So recognizing just that time of sensitivity that still we had the focus for the Mushroom Festival. So thank you very much. And it goes without saying, thank you, Gina and team, the entire committee, and all the volunteers for the Mushroom Festival. We seriously cannot do this without you. So thank you. Mr. Manager.
Sure, thank you. I'll try to go through a few questions and then a few recognitions as well. So first off, we will check into making the meetings two-way and try to figure out how to sort of incorporate that into here. That's the idea with this technology that we have. Secondly, in terms of closing down the building, My thinking was we didn't need to add extra cars onto the road with staff coming in and out. We've gotten pretty good at doing business online following COVID, and I didn't want to put staff at risk in a big building sitting down there at the front. Everyone was still working, and we reopened on Friday after it seemed that the search area had moved away from us. A few recognitions here, and just bear with me on this. Obviously, a few of these will follow Doug, but to our police and first responders for the manhunt over the last couple weeks here. For everyone who worked on the Mushroom Festival, Gina and team, it was good as always. Our Public Works team has done a really good job. I think it's 8 sections of road here in the last couple of weeks, as well as a few water and sewer main breaks. So for those who aren't in the day-to-day, they're going about their normal day-to-day job. One of them happened yesterday on a Sunday, and boom, pressure hits. Someone's doing construction, they hit a pipe, it blows open, and they're working until 9, 10 at night on a Sunday, right? So just really appreciative of the work that they do. And then a few others here, a recognition of Nick and his assistant in finance. So we'll hear on Wednesday a presentation from our auditor. It's another fully clean audit, no comments, no findings. So that's a really good job there. And then lastly, I got word today that we've gotten up to a little over 10,000 subscribers to our monthly online update, which we started early this year. So to have over 10,000 people already in a town of 6,500, Sunny deserves a lot of credit for that. So really proud of a few of our people.
Anything for Kyle? Anything from the solicitor's office, Mr. Cardy?
I've got a couple agenda items I'll cover as they come up, but nothing specifically else.
Sounds good. Chief, anything from the fire? Police.
So I did submit a electronic report as usual. If there's any questions, please let me know. A couple other things I would like to go over. I would like to recognize Martin Feliciano passed away last Saturday or Sunday. Martin, longtime member of this community, former police officer, retired actually, I think about 2 years before I started in 1997. His funeral was just this past Friday, the day before the Mushroom Festival. I know the family was keeping it rather low key, but we did provide an escort from them from the church up to St. Pat's Cemetery. So just wanted to recognize Martin for his contributions to the borough over the years, and give condolences to his family. Secondly, one thing I didn't put into our report, the district attorney's office has been awarded a grant for a new technology through a company called Borough. And this is a DNA sampling database. And what it actually allows us to do now is to submit DNA on smaller level crimes or investigations that we never had the availability to do before. So this is really an incredible technology, and we're training our officers now on how they're going to be collecting DNA samples or anything like that from investigations, so we can do these submissions. And typically we can get a 30-day turnaround if it hits anything into this DNA database, which is just incredible. On more significant major cases in county, there's an in-house machine that the DA's office actually is have in their office, and we could possibly get up to a 90-minute turnaround on the DNA submissions. So it's an incredible advancement for Chester County. And to take it a step further, because of our incredible partnership with the DA's office, we've been asked to be a hub for the DNA collections. So all the departments around us, Kennett Township, East Marlboro, Southern Chester County Regional, will submit any of their collections to us, and we will then send it off to Bodie without hopefully burdening our staff too much. But it was really an honor for the DA to ask us if we would actually be this hub. We have an incredible investigative team and incredible evidence technology. So we're really happy and look forward to this. And the last thing is, I would like to thank the mayor. I'd like to thank council. I'd like to thank the public. On Saturday, I completed my 25 years of full-time service here with the borough. Had 2 years of part-time service before that. It's been an incredible career. I've been able to work and really, involve myself with a lot of people. And I thank you all for the opportunity. And now I begin my 26th full-time.
Thanks, Chief. Congratulations. Mr. McIntosh or Gina, any update from the fire company since you're here? Excellent. Thank you. Committees, personnel, I'll just start with personnel. Personnel will be meeting this month to finally wrap up the personnel manual. And also, we want to be prepping for the borough manager contract, which is coming due at, or renewing, up for renewal on January 1st. Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance Committee met on August 17th. Overall, our budgets by department are in fine shape year to date. Last month, I shared that our earned income tax and our local services tax was running a little bit low. That's corrected itself. It's actually a little bit ahead of budget as of right now. The other key point, sort of in the chief's area, is that we did get a July reimbursement from an insurance company from a police vehicle that had to be replaced, and it was nearly full replacement cost. I think it was about $3,000 short, but overall much better than we were planning for. We also reviewed the 2024 through 27 capital budget. I believe that's on the agenda tonight a little bit later on, and the Finance Committee certainly recommends the council review and hopefully pass that. We also reviewed our 2022 audit, which I think also is on the agenda. The Finance Committee reviewed that and recommends acceptance of that as well. Our September meeting, we actually start looking at our draft 2024 operating budget, so everyone's welcome to join us for that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Norris. Human relations, anything? Anything from public safety? Excellent. Am I missing anyone? Mr. Duchini, I see you're here from Acola. Did you want to give a report or have Mr. Tafoya do it for you? Either one.
Good evening. I am Jorge Duchini, the chair of Acola. We complete almost the revision of the watershed 2045, and I issued to the manager the main issues that is coming during September, October, and November. Will be a public meeting to review the findings of the watershed by October, mid-October. I believe that is in the website, the situation, okay? We are still concerned about the housing. We would like to have everybody to own the house in the borough, but in our community, the salaries are not enough to cover the cost of a new house. So renting is the situation that we need to face that, especially because our community that is working in the mushroom industry don't have enough salary to buy a house. They don't have enough salary sometimes to apply for the mortgage. So we need to consider that. We support as Acola the report from the commission in relation with the housing. And I issue a copy to you, to the borough. In the education area, we still have some concerns about the situation of our kids, you know, mainly the 11 and 12 years old. They need to have some more help to be able to continue the education through the high school, the college, or the community college. You know, we are trying to help through the garage and the Casa Guanajuato to help the application for the new scholarships. You know, that will start in September. to be applied by December. And I hope that next month you will have a full report. We'll meet in tomorrow evening. And I don't know if you have any question.
Questions, Mr. Giannini? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Right, that is the end of the report, so we'll move on to the business now, the discussion items. Well, first, we're going to start out with our public hearing, and this is for a liquor license transfer, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Karate to move forward with the procedures.
Good. Okay, the purpose of this hearing is to have the borough consider a liquor license transfer from outside the borough into the borough. It's permitted under the Pennsylvania Liquor Code. Tonight's been advertised for that purpose. Procedurally, the way it works is the applicant makes their presentation, I think all coming up. And then after that, it's a period of public comment. In terms of the standards that we apply, they're generally considered approvable unless someone can establish that the proposed liquor license at the specific location will be inherently detrimental to the community's health, safety, or welfare. This is, I recognize Attorney McCreesh. And again, this is for the application of Nino Zavallo LLC, and it would go to 305 West State Street for a restaurant.
Yeah. Good evening. My name is John McCreesh, as the solicitor told you. My area of practice is the alcohol beverage industry. I've been doing this for 56 years. I know I look young. Anyhow, I've done this a lot, and I am in favor of the alcohol beverage industry and the fact that when you get a license in an establishment, it gives a lot of restriction. It helps the community in a lot of ways because our society has changed. Years ago, we had neighborhood tap rooms, and if a man got out of control or drank so much, the owner would throw him out. He couldn't get a drink anyplace else, and it was controlled that way. With our new society, we have these restaurants and people bring their own. And when they bring their own, it's very hard to stop them from drinking all their own. And therefore we have problems. And that's why a lot of the problems that I've seen in restaurants and all over the years is because you can't control that person. But if you have a liquor license, it costs, in this respect, one of the most expensive ones I've ever seen in Chester County. You've done something out here. You don't want to lose that license, and not to lose that license, you make sure that the person doesn't get drunk. You make sure you don't sell to minors, and you make sure you close on time, and you make sure you do follow all the rules and regulations. It makes it easier on the police department and everybody else. So with that said, and I'd like to tell you that the applicant today is the restaurant called La Ranchero, and they trade under the name of Nino Zavala LLC. This is Josefina Nino. She does not speak English too well, but we're lucky to have as another member of the LLC, her daughter. So you come up here and you have to raise your right hand and he's going to swear you in.
Thank you. Swear that the testimony and the presentation you're going to make is the truth, nothing but the truth.
Okay, speak up there. How long has your mother been in business at this location?
22 years.
23 years. And what's the name of it?
El Ranchero Mexican restaurant.
And what kind of food do you serve?
Mexican food.
What are some of the items on the menu?
We do have tacos, burritos, the traditional tacos, and platters, fajitas, enchiladas, other things.
And people come here for dinner mostly?
Yeah.
What are your hours of operation?
Well, right now we do Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays from 10:11 to 10:11.
10, 11.
Well, we close at 9, but we have to clean.
You close at 9, but you have to clean up.
Yeah.
Now, in all these cases, the things that bother the community the most usually are loud music. Are you going to have bands, outside music, concerts, or anything like that?
No.
Right. Are you going, the bar scares a lot of people because you have a large bar and a lot of people come in just to drink. and not to eat, that causes problems. How big is your bar gonna be?
Well, it's gonna be like 8 to 10 feet.
8 to 10 feet, so then you could have probably there about
Mhm.
8 people.
Yeah,
So the 8 people, what would they be there for? Would they be able to come in and have a drink and stay all night? Or would they be in there just waiting for their table?
no, just waiting for the table.
How many seats do you have in the restaurant?
96.
90 seats? And how many people do you employ?
Well, right now, we are four or five.
4 or 5, depends on the night. Excuse-
Yeah. And also with the lunch truck.
What'd you say, Mom?
Yeah, because we also have a lunch truck.
Okay.
So on the lunch truck we get to.
Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions from council?
Your hours are gonna stay the same or change?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's gonna stay the same.
Okay, thank you.
Council has no questions.
Do any members of the public have any comment on the application or questions? All right. So I think we can officially then.
Go ahead.
You could tell me you can only have 2 drinks and you gotta leave. It's done all the time.
Mhm.
Well, okay.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Anything else from council? All right, seeing none, then any objections from council moving this to consent items on Wednesday night? No, all right. We'll take formal voting action on Wednesday at our meeting, but it's going to the consent, so thank you very much.
I appreciate it. I really enjoyed the meeting.
Thank you. We do too. That's why we're here.
I was just a little aside. I was a councilman, I was a township commissioner in Hamilton Township years ago. You got away lucky with a half an hour worth of comment.
You got a good night. Have a good night, Mr. McCrae. All right, I'll go ahead.
Just to clarify here quickly, the name of the business is Zavala, just for council members of Zavala's sake and everyone in the
Yep.
public, there's no relationship, just to be totally transparent on that.
Thank you, Kyle. All right, I'm going to close the public meeting. Thank you. All right, we will move on to the HARB items. Mr. Fronin. Thank you.
As you can see, we have 2 applicants tonight, 233 North Union, which is essentially repair and replace of stucco that was inappropriately put on in the first place, and it has to be replaced. The HARB voted unanimously to recommend the COA be issued for this work. You can see in the pictures, if you have the full application, that very desperately needs work. So if there are any questions on that one, I'll try to answer it for you.
Any questions on 233 North Union?
The other applicant is 216 East State, which is the former library that's being converted into a retail outlet. They have asked to put in an ADA compliant entranceway to modify the rear of the building for loading dock purposes. I'm sorry that you don't have pictures, but the presentation was done with full-scale plans. It was reviewed by both architects on the committee, and they found no problems with what was being provided. I fortunately was not at the meeting, so I'm relying on my folks to report the recommendations.
Any, oh, go ahead.
So the ADA compliant entrance is in the back, not on the side?
Let's see. It's on the west wall, which would be the alley side.
Yeah.
And then the loading dock
Mhm.
that stay within their,
It has to stay within their area as deeded.
not extending.
Right. Now, they have some additional access according to council actions where they can move their trucks in and out. But the loading dock itself will probably not extend past the curbing that's currently there. You know, there's a drop off to get to the lower floor. It's in that area.
Anything else for Mr. Fronin?
And
Any objections to moving this to consent?
And as a reminder, there is no color portion of the ordinance, so whatever color that library becomes is not subject to the HARB review.
Well, I was going to mention that because it's already started to.
Yeah.
Right, but that was not subject to harm, so.
Thank you.
All right, we will move both items to consent, seeing no objections. Let's see here, Kennett High School Homecoming Parade. Chief Mayor?
Well, I can take care of that one. So this is really an annual event the school's been doing for several years at this point in time. The only condition that we did ask for them to do is to also file for the PennDOT permit for the closure of 82, which I know Sean Harvey, who submitted this, has submitted that to PennDOT. So we're going to proceed with, you know, the fact of that they're going to receive the approval. There's no reason that they shouldn't.
Anything for Chief or any council discussion on this item? That will go to consent. Kennett on Top, Rotary fundraiser. Oh, Susan's here. Susan, do you want to come up to the podium and just share the event? It seems like it was just yesterday that you had the last one.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sue Minarki. I'm this year's president of the Kennett Square Rotary Club. Last year, we had our first Kennett on Top fundraiser on the 4th floor of the parking garage. It was a very successful event. We received lots of compliments from our attendees. We were able to raise about $13,000, which we will be able to funnel back into the community, giving grants to nonprofits that need them. So we're applying this year for another Kennett on Top, the second annual, to be held on June 22nd, 2024, if approved.
Any questions from council?
Did everything go okay with the neighbors from last year?
They're shortening it by a half an hour this year on the timeline. And I recall right afterwards, I did speak to some of the neighbors and there were no issues, correct?
Yeah, thank you.
Last year, it was 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. This year, it'll be 6 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Now, and was parking discussed? Because I know for this past year,
Yes,
we gave the
it
waiver
was.
because it was approved before we had the parking fees. So how did that conversation go? You're giving me a mean look here.
Not a mean look at all. I
No.
totally understand
I
it.
just wanted to know because I knew that that waiver happened, so.
Yeah, yeah. We were pleased that it happened last year. We're not so pleased about this coming year, but we understand why it's in place. So we're happy to do it. I'll only give you mean looks when I see you on the street.
You have a lot of time to plan and get more people to
That's right.
fundraise for that. No, I heard it was a great event last year and look forward to going. Let me rappel down the building at the end of this month for Camp Dreamcatcher, and then we'll talk about that one. Anything else from council? Any objection to moving this to consent? All right. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your support.
All right. Chief, considering the acceptance of the certified hiring list.
Great, thank you again. So on 8-9, council did charge the Civil Service Commission to generate a new certified hiring list for the hiring of a full-time police officer. Civil Service Commission did meet on August 14th, reviewed the previously generated certified eligibility list, and then created a new certified hiring list, which has been submitted to you now. And at this point, I would ask that you consider it for approval.
Council, any questions? Just following procedures here and seems to be moving in the right direction to get somebody back on the force. We'll move that to consent with no objections. And then part two of this.
Part two, moving on. So this is to consider the approval of a conditional offer of employment based on that civil service certified hiring list. We are asking that you approve the conditional offer for Christian Walker. Christian Walker is on that certified list, and this position is planned for and approved within the 2023 Police Department operating budget and now fills a new vacancy.
Any questions other than Mr. Norris obviously asking if this individual is bilingual? But
I don't even need the question. I will answer it. He is not bilingual, but I do actually pose a challenge to you to speak to our legislators that it is time to look at changing the PA Borough Code and removing a civil service requirement from the borough. Because with that, I have no way to recruit and try and seek out candidates like that. Whereas townships all around us could hire anybody with the stroke of a pen. So I think we need to look beyond civil service, which is a rather antiquated and old hiring process. There was a value to it years ago. Now it has just become more of a hindrance for us to try and find candidates. We were able to hire part-time candidates from our community, and we've had bilingual and Hispanic officers before. But with civil service testing for full-time, it's impossible to actually recruit people. And really, I would love to see our legislators look to changing the PA Borough Code. So, Mr. Norris, sir, I challenge you.
Challenge accepted, Chief. I do have one other question, Mr. President, if I may. I noticed that Mr. Walker is second on the list. Was the first person not available?
The first person we did not find that was going to be a fit for our department.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Mr. Sprick, did you have a question?
Bob, you stole my question.
Oh, sorry.
You were going to steal Bob's question. No, but Chief, that's good information as far as changing the borough code as it relates to civil service. So thank you. Any objection to moving that to consent? I did not think so. All right, we are moving on to Public Works, and the absence of Rob, is this going to you?
I'll hand it off to our attorney, Mike.
Oh, okay.
Beware when an attorney has to talk sewage. Just do enough of it during the day, according to some people. So Rob did go through the basic parameters of this agreement, I believe, at our last meeting in August. Essentially, Aqua's a legacy. It took over from New Garden, which has had the ability to flow about 100,000 gallons per day of treated sewage or effluent into our system. And that agreement was extended twice, and now the current agreement runs this Thursday. And Aqua still needs additional time to determine its long-term planning, whether they're going to stay with us or not stay with us. So what this agreement does is it extends the current arrangement to December 31st, 2026. By the end of this year, they have to commit as to whether they're going to stay with us long-term and continue to flow, because we need to know that for Act 537 planning purposes, or whether they're going to take their treated effluent elsewhere. In addition, the important things that this agreement does that are a big benefit to the borough, number one, it reduces the amount of flow that they can make to 70,000 gallons per day as a max. That frees up some. It's not a 1-for-1 ratio, but it does free up some additional capacity for the plant generally. And two, they will now be required to pay a minimum charge that they weren't charged before. Under their old arrangement, which was years and years and years old, they only needed to pay when they actually flowed. So when they would have months and months of flowing nothing, they would pay nothing. But we are incurring kind of baseline operational costs just by having the capacity available. So with this, they would have to pay a base rate charge regardless of whether they flow. And then if they go above a certain amount of flow, then they still have to pay the same rate that any borough customer pays. So we're putting them on par with any other borough.
And they've agreed to all that.
They have, yes.
Okay.
Any questions for the solicitor?
Just one question. If there is a sewer plant expansion in the future, do they have a proportionate requirement to participate in both the study and the any expansion costs, or is it only or do they not, is there no requirement to do that?
It depends on what they're gonna do. That's why I think the question has been asked of them in the past, what do they want? And okay, we're thinking about it. We don't know. We might flow more, we might flow less. We don't know what we're gonna do. And that's why this agreement gives them till the end of this year. Because that could very well impact, if they flow any more, what we do in terms of longer term planning. Thank you.
Anything else from council? Any questions or discussion? And just to clarify again, as I always do when we talk about Aqua, this is not involving Aqua and Chester Water Authority and that issue. This is completely separate. All right, we'll move this to consent without any objection. Number 17 is that considering the letter of intent from the Hub and Kennett Flash, the agenda wasn't amended to remove this, but we do not have all the information that we need to move forward with this, and I think this is going to be at the October meeting, right now.
Yeah, we're still having productive discussions with the Flash and Uptown Theater Company. Working in good faith, good negotiations. We're just not quite there yet. So we're asking for another month here just to get it from hopefully 90% to 100, and ready for your consideration.
And again, this is for the possible tenancy here at 600 Broad Street.
That's right.
That'll come up in October. I think I'm turning this over to Nick and/or the chief, considering the MOU to amend the CBA with Kennett Square Police Association.
That's going to be Nick.
All right. No.
Okay, sure, I can speak to it. So
Congratulations, Nick.
The MOU.
I'm sorry, that is me. I'm
Oh,
looking at
okay,
looking at
okay,
The
good.
MMO.
Close, different things.
So this was based on the current collective bargaining agreement with the association. There was a change recommended to include psychology as far as a course of study. I believe the current MOU states sociology, as an approved course. So this was to include that, and then also I believe there was another exception put into it for anything that either myself or the manager actually believes would be beneficial for the borough. As an additional course of study that we didn't have to actually come back to the borough for separate approval. So it would require both of our approvals actually, to incorporate into it. So I would ask that you consider the MOU as it's been presented by our attorneys.
Did you say sociology or psychology?
So this is to include courses in psychology,
Okay.
whereas the current reading, the previous reading only said sociology.
Questions from council?
Comment and a question. I mean, I had the opportunity to ride along with a few officers, and the psychological issues they face, chief, are probably one of the biggest and most constant issues they have to deal with as law enforcement folks. So any additional training they can get to help them for their portion of that is certainly something I totally support. Do you have any feel for the financial cost of that, or your best estimate on an annual basis of what these courses may cost?
So I believe you're looking anywhere between probably $3,000 and $5,000 per year.
Thank you.
And if I can add to that, the request for the schooling has to actually be submitted by August 31st. So we're planning for it as we're looking at the following year's budgets.
Gotcha.
But it doesn't really hit us after we've already settled the budget.
And I think council's aware that we have the contract, the police officer's contract, uniformed police officers ends next year. So I think it's certainly in the best interest of the community, the council, the officers to start that, open up that negotiation either later this year or as soon as we can next year to make sure we have enough time to answer their questions and vice versa.
Yeah, no, I would suggest early next year. Yeah, I would say get through this year, but definitely start early next year. Earlier that you start discussions, the more time you have to really work through any issues.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anything else from council? All right, we'll move that to consent with no objections. Now maybe I'll turn it over to Nick and Kyle for, this is the approval of the 2024 minimum municipal obligation for the pension plan.
Okay, as you can see here, I'll just read it off because it's pretty much self-explanatory. As the Chief Administrative Officer for we're doing the police pension plan first. It is a requirement to inform the governing body council of the borough's expected financial obligation for the coming year, the 2024 year, by the last day of September. And this amount required for the police pension plan for 2024 funding is $92,659, and that was determined actuarially by our consultants who administer the plan. This is not the current year's funding. We do have an obligation to pay that by the end of December of this year. This is for the 2024 year.
Any questions for Nick?
Nick, when we pay this $92,659, what portion of the police pension will be unfunded?
I think it's fully funded.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
What was our funding this year, the contribution?
I'm not sure what you're asking from.
The minimum municipal obligation, I'm sorry.
Oh, for 2023?
For 2023.
That number was, I don't have that in front of me, but the amount did not change very much. It's kind of a complicated formula based on salaries and especially at the police department, there's not a lot of change in that. The salaries are consistent because of the CBA. It's based on average retirement age of the individuals who are, currently working and currently collecting, retired. There wasn't much change from year to year with the police plan.
Thank you. Anything else from council? Any discussion? All right, we'll move that part to consent and I'll just keep you up there, Nick. This is for the same for the non-uniformed.
Yes,
pension.
exact same thing for the non-uniform plan. Chief Administrative Officer, which is myself of the non-uniform pension plan, is required to inform the governing body of the borough's expected financial obligation to fund the plan in the coming year, 2024, and it's required to be completed by the last day of September. The amount for the non-uniform plan is $241,023 for 2024.
It's about 50 between the two, between uniform and non-uniform. It's roughly half and half. I don't know with part-time where exactly we are today.
Questions from council? All right. Any objections to moving this to consent? Being none. Thank you, Nick.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we will move to considering the Planning Kennett Connections final report. Ms. Norland.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Christina Norland from Kennett Trails Alliance. I'm a member of the Regional Trails Planning Committee, which helped sponsor this project. This, if everyone recalls, was a study that was done that was funded by the Vision Planning Partnership Program from Chester County. The report and the project was to look at regional trail connections in the Kennett Square area, including connecting Unionville down to Kennett Square Borough, Kennett Township, Longwood Gardens, and Route 52 Bikeway all together. The project extended for much of the last year. There was a lot of different studies that were done, public meetings, and a draft report was reviewed here at Borough Council back in June. And there was a substantial public comment period. All of those comments were relatively minor, especially when it comes to the area impacted by the borough. And the final report has now been published on the report website as well as provided to council tonight. And it has also been reviewed and approved by the Chester County Planning Commission, which is the grant funding agency in this case. So the reason that this is before you today is in order for the grant to be dispersed, all of the municipalities that have participated, which includes the borough, East Marlborough Township, and Kennett Township, must approve the report in order for the grant funds to be dispersed. When I say approve, I mean saying it's basically a resolution that you have before you, which essentially says that the contract with the consulting firm McMahon has been completed, is not saying that you're adopting the report in full into some sort of larger planning document like the municipal code or anything like that. So that is a summary of sort of where we're at today, but I'm happy to answer any questions on the report or the process or where we're at.
You're not going to go over the whole report.
Would you like me
No.
to? I mean, we got a couple hours.
So yeah, you did do that, a good chunk of that. So this again, like you just said, VPP grant requires we accept the report.
Correct.
That's right. Questions from council?
Great job. What you've done for the community is unbelievable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any objections to moving this to consent? All right, I think I'm going to keep you up there, right?
Okay, sounds good.
And we're going to move to the Kennett Rail Sidings and Greenway Connector Support Letter.
Yeah, so this is the request that is before you is to ratify a letter of support for a grant that has been applied for by East Penn Railroad. And you're probably scratching your head like, why are you here talking about East Penn Railroad when you're with trails? But as many of you know, one of the long-term projects for multimodal transportation in the area is the Kennett Greenway. A substantial impediment to multimodal transportation in our area is the east-south, oh my goodness, east-west running East Penn Railroad line, which is obviously still active. There have been a number of initiatives over many years. In fact, I believe I was here talking about a underpass that was initially proposed in order to get pedestrians and bicyclists underneath and through the railroad, basically right on the border of the borough and the township at Kennett Park. Obviously, like the underpass was sort of a last ditch effort solution that is not the easiest thing to implement, but it's doable, but not necessarily preferred. I remember John, I believe at the last meeting that we talked about this was like, aren't you worried about what you're going to find when you dig under there? That could be a possibility. There are always risks when you do those types of things. So the Trails Alliance, as well as a number of other folks, have been working closely with East Penn Railroad to try to come to another solution, which thankfully has finally come to pass. So East Penn Railroad has historically not been able to do an at-grade crossing in that location because the trains are currently stored overnight behind the NBF site on the main track. Due to a number of factors, including like safety related requirements, they are not able to add an at-grade crossing in that area. However, they do own property outside of the borough where they can store the trains if they build sidings. So they are applying for a grant through the Rail Transportation Assistance Program that will enable them to build those sidings. And when those sidings are built, they will also use those same grant funds to put an at-grade crossing in at Pennock Park. So this would remove the trains from being parked overnight in the borough. And it will also provide the at-grade crossing if this grant is approved. The match is actually going to be provided by Kennett Township as part of that as well. So the only thing before the borough is really whether you support the project. So.
Any questions?
The park that would, or the place where they would park the trains, where is?
So it's on their property in Tough Kenneman area. Like, correct, like near Manfredi.
Okay.
Christina, what does an at-grade crossing look like and feel like?
So this is where you would be able to walk across the tracks directly. There's usually like a concrete thank you, path that is put on top of like through the tracks so it's level. And then the railroad has specific safety requirements that it must implement depending on a number of factors. This crossing is the most safe crossing that you can have. So basically, because of the speed of the trains and the infrequency of the trains, it doesn't require substantial amounts of like bells and whistles and signage. And I mean, it does require some of those things, but it doesn't require arms, things like that, similar to what you already see in some of the crossings in the borough already. So that they will be designing it per their required specifications and regulations.
This is great, because that's what you need to connect what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I hope it goes through. I think I heard somebody asking out here what it costs the borough, and the answer is nothing. So there will be no cost to the borough on this project. Yep.
Anything else from council? All right.
Thank you.
We'll move to this to consent. Thank you, Christine.
Yep, anytime.
All right. Considering the capital improvement plan.
Yes, thank you. This is coming back to you after a significant workshop session. It's gone through the finance committee a few times, looking for adoption here. Again, to clarify, this is part of our annual planning process. So many of you participate in the spring when we take a really high level look at what we want the community to be. This is the next phase in that, which is what are the big projects that you need to do that? So last year, we identified infrastructure as a priority. The capital plan says, okay, then you have to repair your roads, right? So the next phase after this will be the annual budget, which is, okay, we're not going to get everything that we want, right? It's a real, it's a reality. And what's the staffing that we need? And what are the smaller pieces that fill in to accomplish those big projects? And then at the end of the year, we do an evaluation and we go into the spring and we go right back into the same thing again. So this is an adoption of that capital plan that's largely unchanged from what you've seen before. This is largely non-binding. The budget is the item that locks in your spending, but this is generally trying to translate council priorities, which reflect the communities, into projects as a planning effort to get towards the budget. Happy to answer any questions on it.
Any questions from council?
Yeah. Sure. You know what? We'll leave one here, but we'll also put it on our website as well. And if you want a copy, just let me know. We'll print you one. Yeah, sure. Great.
Any questions tonight from council? Will we take this off a consent just so we can have some specific conversation regarding these items, since there's numbers, since the public will probably have a chance to review it. So let's take this off consent for Wednesday night, because I know that there is a lot to process. But Kyle, I know you and the team have been working really hard with this, with all the impact or input we've gotten throughout the year. So I do think it lined up really nicely, at least to translate what's been brought up.
It's a lot of credit to Nick and our Rob, Denise, and our Public Works, public safety inputs, finance committee. So it really is a whole team effort.
Thank you. Bills paid. Mr. March?
Mr. President, the Finance Committee did review the bills and had our questions answered and recommend that council approve the July, August bills in the amount of $201,492.47.
Any questions for Nick, Bob, or the Finance Committee? Seeing none, we're going to go to consent for that. And then the minutes. Thank you, Rachel. I know that's been a lot of catching up to do. Any questions on the minutes from the previous number of meetings?
I had a couple of questions.
Yep.
Mr. President, if I may, give me a second. The library, I'm looking at the June 7th, these are some follow-up questions. June 7th meeting, the library was to make a payment of $2,500 for the extinguishing of the lease on parking spaces. Have they done that, Nick? That's all done? John Thomas on July 12th brought up a bush on the property. That was Apple Alley. That's been taken care of, right? Okay. Looking at the August 9th minutes, Roxanne Russell about missing street trees. Is that part of our discussion tonight?
That was for the last
discussion tonight. We're having a workshop on Wednesday.
On Wednesday, okay.
But I'd have to review that. Sorry. Part of this has to do with the shade tree. Part of it has to do with our staff. So
Gotcha, okay.
we'll work through that.
Okay. And then there was also a motion or discussion on releasing of unneeded office furniture from this building last early August. Has that happened or is that in progress or what's next?
Yeah, we're working on that. It takes some effort to pull together a public meeting, but we're going to have the public in and allow people to come in and take furniture as they see fit. We just need to work through some of the liability things and the date. It's a fair amount of effort to put it together.
Okay. And then
yeah. Yep.
And then there's a discussion on the getting the revolving loan fund back up and running. Is that going now, Nick?
No, that's still a work in progress.
Okay, will that happen in the near future?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, anything else on the minutes? All right, we will move those to consent, and that is the end of the discussion items. Anything else from council tonight?
Mr. President, I just noticed looking at the information Christina was giving us that the borough's comprehensive plan is dated 2013. And I think it's a county request that it be done. I don't think it's a mandate, but every 10 years, that's probably something we should bring up early next year, potentially.
Yeah, we've already had discussions with the county about getting into that, but it's a massive undertaking. So we're trying to stabilize our codes, planning, zoning operation before digging into that.
Thank you.
That could be part of it. Yeah, it could be, but.
Yeah, when Evan was here. We had talked about that.
Yep, okay.
Anything else from council? Mr. Mayor?
Just really quick, I know we gave some accolades to the Mushroom Festival Committee for doing a good job making that happen. I want to specifically thank Gina. She had a tough week last week. There were some mistakes in printing and times for wristbands hanging out, and she personally really took the brunt of a lot of negative phone calls, emails, and texts, and it's a volunteer role. This is a volunteer opportunity that the community gets to enjoy, but she got beat up last week from folks for different miscommunication things, and you wonder why people stay and continue to volunteer. But Gina really did it as well. There were comments to the chief and other folks here about the Mushroom Festival being held in light of the manhunt and that it was a bad decision to hold it. And those decisions were all made. Those decisions were all made in the conjunction with recommendations from the state police who are in charge of the manhunt. They did not ask us to not hold it. They did not require us to change anything. So I just wanted to make sure it was out there that there was a lot of communication. There was a lot of time spent between the Mushroom Committee, the chief, and other people, and it went off without a hitch. So thank you, Gina, for putting yourself out there.
All right, anything else? Looking around? All right, meeting adjourned.